hello guys. Good afternoon to all our OFWs who are watching right now. So ito na naman po ako si Gary Jose TV, now discussing to you the introduction to Linux. Last time, hindi ako busy, kaya nakapag-discuss ako nung Linux versus OS na Linux versus OS na Windows. Now, pupunta ngayon tayo sa introduction to Linux. So this one, the Linux, we always use this one in Cisco when we run the programming, which is the script. We use Linux in Autotest, but most of the time now we are transforming or changing the OS that we are using, especially in Cisco, from Linux or the Autotest converted to Python. Now, maybe on our next topic after the Linux, we'll go to basic programming of Python. So, umpisa muna tayo. Introduction to Linux. Ito yung mga i-discuss natin. Basic computer architecture, introduction to operating systems, history of Linux and open source, features of Linux, and how to get started. So, ano ba yung basic computer architecture ng Linux? Or ano ba yung basic function niya? So, example natin itong computer. So, pag nakakita kayo ng computer, mostly, you can see yung architectural layout niya. So, meron siyang power supply, or which is the PSU, meron siyang motherboard, meron siyang CPU, meron siyang RAM, hard drive, and video card. Unahin natin ang CPU. The CPU, the basic function of the CPU is executes all instructions. Hindi lang siya nag-execute, meron din siyang instructions are binary, or they call this one as OP codes or operating code. Then the next one, modern CPUs have multiple cores, more than one CPU on the same chips or the chip. CPU speed is measured in hertz, how fast the hertz bit of the CPU bits. Sometimes they call that one as megahertz, gigahertz, terahertz. Diyan mini-measure yung speed ng CPU mo. The next one is the memory. Ano ba yung basic na function talaga ng memory? From the definition, electronic storage of data. So all data that being stored is the basic function of the memory. Another one, cannot persist without power. That's correct. So based on experience, we also encounter this one when we run our product in Cisco. So some DIMM card, if not put on the slot, or the correct DIMM card is not put on the slot of the board, it will not power up or no boot up. So that is the function of the memory. The third one is the fast. Why they call that one as fast, but not the fastest. Nanoseconds of response, maybe also. Most or must be compatible with the motherboard or the BUS. Correct. That one is also, or it should be compatible with the motherboard, because we have a unit in Cisco which is the N5K, N2K, and N3K. So if the CPU is not the same with the capacity, or not compatible with the unit, it will not boot up also. So napaka-importante ng compatibility ng memory sa product na gagawin or gagamitin. So the next one is the motherboard. Pinaka-mother siya, yung pinaka-main motherboard, the main board. So from the definition, where it all comes together, component of the computer connects via bus connection on the motherboard. Different motherboards support different bus speeds. So some come integrated with video and much more. So if you see this one, the the motherboard, you can see here the back input output port, the main power, which is this one, main power connector, the embedded CPU, this one. So the RAM slot, which is, I told you a while ago, we have a unit in Cisco. They are using this one, the RAM slots. The North Bridge chip, we're also using this one. And the IDE ports, which is this one, PCI Express slot, this one, the SATA port, back audio connector. This is the main board. Now we will go to the hard drive. So we are also using this one. Most of the unit that we do, we are using this one, the hard drive. So what is the function of the hard drive? Stores data persistently. Can be mechanical, HDD, or electronic SDD. Most of the time now, most of the electronic devices that are using now, they are using the SDC because SSD is more faster compared to HDD. So connect to a controller, which is a SATA, PATA, or IDE. Controller is attached to or embedded in the motherboard. Slow is greater than 1000 times slower than main memory. So this is the parts of the hard drive. The plotter, the motor. Plotter is this one. The read and write head. Actuator, this one. Interface. Jumper, this one. And the power supply or the power source. The magic that make it all works. This is the transistor. So we have the transistor. So all students who are taking up electronic, maybe they know the basic circuitry of the transistor. So we have the voltage in here, the base, the emitter connected to the ground, the collector, then the voltage output, and we have here the resistor and the VCC, which is the voltage controller. This one, the VCC. Now, this is the circuitry of the transistor. Yung mga nag-aaral naman ng programming or electronic also, I think, we discussed this one when I was in college. The AND gate, the OR gate, the logic gates, the NAND gate, the NOR gate, OR gate, the NOT gate, and NOR gate. Now, what are the function of this one? We have the input and the output. So for example, I have here A and B input. Then the output is A multiplied by B, or the AB. A, example, we have here the AND, or we will discuss first this one, the OR gate. So we have the input based on this diagram. If you look at this one, this one. So we have here the input, which is the A and the B. We have here the 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. So example, we will do the first, the AND gate, which is this one. So I have here 0. For example, you have here 0. then 0. So what is the output? So 0, based on the formula, 0 multiplied by 0 is 0. So 0 is the output. That is based on the formula in the logic gates. Now, we'll go with the NAND gate. So NAND gate, you have the circular area of this one. So it means that you are inverting the AND gate. So example, you have here the input, which is the 0, 0 from A, then 0 from A, the input. So the output from here is 0, right? So based on the AND, but you have the formula, which is the line above the A and B. So 0, you inverted the 0, it become 1. So this is the 1, right? Then the next one is the OR gate. OR gate. So in OR gate, you are just adding the input of the A and the B. So the input example is A 0, then the B is 0, based on the formula, which is A plus B. So 0 plus 0 is equal to 0. The output is 0. This is based on the table. Now on the OR gate, so same with with this one. So same approach, but since plus, so 0, 0, then you have the output, which is 0, because you are adding 0 from A, 0 from B is equal to 0. But you have the line on the top of the A plus B. So you will invert it. You need to invert the 0 value, which is now become 1. So base 0 inverted become 1. So XOR. Now before we go to XOR, we try to get the value first from the NOT gate. So NOT gate. So A, you have the input of 0, 0 here, A. Then the output, you inverted the 0, it become 1. See, same with the 1 input, then inverted the 1, it becomes 0, right? So ibang approach naman sa XOR gate or the EOR. So E XOR, which is this one. So A, example, you have the input A and the B. So A is 0, B is 0. Pinunta mo kay XOR gate, so it become 0, 0. Because A plus 0, 0, it become also 0. Right? So same approach with the XNOR gate. So parang ito lang din yun. Ito yan. XNOR gate. Okay? So yung output ng A plus na may circular area based on the formula, B, inverted mo lang yan. So magiging 1. Right? Now we'll go with the schematic diagram of the OR gate. So I have here the value of the A, the input, though we have a resistor here. Then we have voltage 5 volts, V1. And also you have the value of B here. So input, then directed to the ground. Then input on the B. Then these two connected, you have the value, which is the output. This is the schematic diagram of the OR gate. Now, different with the AND gate or the AND gate. So you have the voltage here. So you are using A, input, then go down, then dadaan uli siya, dalawa sila. Then the output is in the lower one. So you have here a resistor here. Okay, then the ground. So that is the schematic diagram of the AND gate. How does it work? So flip-flop. Basic electronic components of computer. This is the schematic diagram. So you are combining the R and the S. So the R is the input. The S is also the input. So if we go back from the diagram, if you notice like this one, you have here the NOR gate, right? The NOR gate, two NOR gate. So the input connected to the output of the S. So the input of the S connected to the output of the R. So Q, then Q, may guhit sa taas. So NOR gates or not or are truly only when both input are 0, or we may call this one in programming as false, or also we call this one as off, right? Gates are basic electronic features implemented using transistors or outside scope. Now this is now the adding of the different logic gates. If you notice here, we have the value of the A, B, C, and S. So the A is the input, the B is the input, ayan. At ang output niya ay ang S, at output niya rin ay C, okay? So si B connected sa input sa baba. Si A ay connected din sa input sa baba. Then si B connected sa input ng S. Then si A connected sa input ng S. So example, I have here the input na 0, 0. Si 0 pumasok. So lalabas siya. Magkakaroon siya ng value na 0. Okay? Kasi diretso lang siya. Si B naman 0 pa rin. Ito pa rin siya. So magiging value pa rin ng S niya ay 0. Si A pumasok dito. So papasok ang value naman ngayon ni C. Parang kanina lang. So on the last discussion, we have discussed the AND gate, XOR gate. Okay? So halimbawa naman daw si 0 and 1. So si 0 ay pumasok kay S. Siyempre, lalabas sa kanya kay S ay magiging 1 kasi invert mo siya, di ba? Bakit? Bakit siya magiging S? Kasi yung value ng B ay 1. So itong 1, parang pinag-add mo lang sila. 0 plus 1. So basic formula niya kanina. So magiging value ng S niya ay 1. Okay? Ganon din kay B. Si B naman papasok kay C, sa input ni C. Tapos si A papasok din dito. So dito lang siya magkakaroon ng value. So ang value ng C ay 0. Nagigets? Kasi AND gate. Ito naman ay XOR gate. So half adder takes 2 bits and add them together. XOR and AND gates use. XOR is true when only one or the other inputs is true. AND is true when both are true. Putting others in serial connection allows us to add many bits together. This is now the circuitry of the full adder. Full adder na. So meron na tayong input na A, B, and CI. So ito na yung tatlo. So including the carry from the previous adder into the results, XOR, and OR gates. So XOR, and OR gates. Pinagsama na sila. Ayan na yung tinawag na full adder. So example lang natin itong una para mabilis ang discussion natin. So meron kang input na 0, meron kang input na 0, meron kang input na 0. So papasok ngayon kay XOR. Ito yon, 0. Papasok ngayon siya kay XOR ulit. So ang lalabas sa kanya kay S ay 0. Kasi yung value pa rin ng B, so parang pinag-ano mo lang sila sa formula nilang XOR. A, B, 0, 0. Pumasok siya. So ang lalabas ay 0. Pero ang input mo pa rin dito ay 0. Yung input mo galing kay CI, ito yon, pumasok siya ay 0. So ang lalabas pa rin sa kanya ay 0. Okay, gets? Yan, parang combination siya nitong tatlo. A, B, and CI. Now, this is now the architecture. So, input devices connected to the control unit, then connected to the output. Si control unit naman ay it's either external storage and arithmetic logic unit at connected si memory kay arithmetic logic circuit unit. Okay? Ito yung CPU na tinatawag. So, pupunta siya kay control unit, then pupunta siya kay storage, magbabalikan lang silang dalawa. Ganon din kay memory, parang cycle siya. Okay? Arithmetic logic unit, memory, control unit. Itong isa at dalawa na to ay tinatawag na CPU kay control unit at arithmetic logic unit. Now, machine CPU language. Many language is easy for a computer to understand, hard for humans. Higher level computer languages translate easier understood languages to computer or the OP codes. This is the code, different code. So meron siyang MOV, EAX, byte, first byte input into EAX POW. This is the code na tinatawag na coding. Siguro if you have an experience in programming, maybe later, lalo sa mga estudyante, you can always encounter the coding, yung tinatawag na codes. We call that one sometimes script. Okay? Now, we'll go with the introduction to operating system. Hardware does nothing without software. Tama yan. The operating system is an abstraction layer between your code and the hardware. The hardware has no concept of files, printers, network, or etc., all of which is defined by the operating system. Example, we have a different example, which is the Unix, Windows, Linux, VMS, DOS-based, and the CPM. This is the OS layer. We have here the main, which is the application software. So inside the application software, we have the computer games, spreadsheet, word processor, databases, internet browsers. Inside this application software, we have here the system software. So there are two operating system utilities. And inside the software, we have here the hardware, the CPU, the disk, mouse, printer, etc. So this is the operating system layer. Defining devices security. So in the operating system, there are different area, which is the application, disk drive, mouse, printer, keyboard, and monitor. Ito yung bumubuo dun sa operating system. Now, we will now go to the kernel of the Linux, or the problematic network interface, or the OS services. If you see the diagram here, we have here the problematic network interface, the network interface. So inside the network interface, we have here the system call interface, protocol independence interface, network protocol, device independent interface, network device drivers, and the device hardware. Now, inside this system call interface, you have here the virtual file system. And inside the protocol independence interface, we have here the process scheduler. Now, on the left side, user application, the OS services, the Linux kernel, hardware controllers. And also here, the legend, non-kernel layer, kernel subsystem, the module, multiple modules, and control flow, and data flow. After maybe this discussion, we'll go with how does the kernel do, or what are the process that they are using from this one, from this kernel. So we will just tackle the introduction of this Linux kernel. Now we go back to the history of Linux and open source. First version published by Linus Torvalds in 1991. It was a license under GNU GPL in 1992. First Linux distributions appear. In 1994, version 1.x is released, which is the Red Hat release first version. So we are using this one in Autotest, the Red Hat. In 1998, major companies announced support for Linux, which is the IBM, Oracle, and the Compaq. In 2003, first enterprise released by Linux. In 2012, Red Hat became first company to cross $1 billion in revenue in open source. Why did it happen? Open source started much earlier than Linux. Early mid-1980s, Richard Stallman and a group of engineers wanted the free version of Unix to use in universities. Proprietary code and contrasts prevented use of the system to do what is Stallman wanted to do: establish GNU, KPLF, and FSF, which lead to GPL 1.0. If you want to see this GNU, you just go to this website. Open source is about freedom, not gratis. Free as in bear. The freedom to share creative innovation and participation. Open source existed before Linux, but GNU and Linux created a platform making open source project take off. We have here the Apache, Java, Perl, Python, PostgreSQL. Maybe on the next topic we will discuss on the Python, because the Python now is the most usable programming language here in 21st century. Early on, working with Linux meant custom compiling everything to install it, including the kernel. Today, Linux distribution all use binary distribution of software. The binaries are stored on repository servers, making it very simple to install any software. Softwares come in packages such as RPM and DEP. Installing software of Linux is easier than on Windows. Now, what is the features of Linux? Linux is just a kernel, the core of the operating system. The kernel does nothing without software. The GNU project provides most of the software needed to be compatible with Unix. Commands like ls, bscd, mkdir, all from the GNU project. Some prefer to call Linux or the GNU/Linux, since this is more true to what actually makes a basic Linux system run. Linus Torvalds still maintains control of the kernel and its development. Linux dominates in most data centers, in appliances, and mobile devices. Chances are you're running Linux already without knowing it. Correct? Core features of any Linux system. The file system is very important. Has a root name and directories under it. Directories may be mount points to other file systems. Software is not aware of where data is actually stored. Lots of different file systems. Example of this one is ext2/3/4, Riser FS, XFS, BFOT, and TFS. Everything is a file. The concept of file goes beyond storing data. Everything is represented via file, such as a raw devices to which to OS communications. or communicates. Even processes are seen as files. If you put it all together, based on the previous discussion, Linux provides a base to run advanced and high performing software on. Open source means you can get it on free. Linux supports older hardware because you can slim down what you run. You can make it run with little memory and CPU power older hardware. Tons of softwares written for Linux today. Community participation makes Linux grow, or if you like, you can join the community. You have the processes. A process is a unit that executes code. Some processes are part of the operating system. When your software runs, it becomes a process. All processes have a PID, or the process identification number. Processes are owned by a user. Linux handles how to run many processes at the same time. It's not unusual to have 200 processes at the same time. You have the features, which is the security. Multi-user operating system. Linux is designed to be used by more than one user at a time. Everything must run as is a user. Every system has a root. You root user without UID of 0. The super admin can bypass pretty much every security features of the system. You take note of this one. No one should run as root permanently. Just take note of this one with regards to security or the features of the Linux. File security allows files to be kept private, shares with a few, or share with everyone. Security defines right to read, write, and execute. Features or the interface. Linux can be used with or without a graphical interface. Servers usually run without IGUI or the GUI. Users can choose between many different types of GUI environments, Windows managers, GNOME, KDE, Sugar, to mention a few. Command lines, consoles, or the local and remote. Now, features of the Linux in terms of networking. Linux did not become TCP compliant until late in its life. It was one of the many delays before version 1 was released. Today, Linux is used as the core in routers and switches. Yeah, we are doing this one, this product, the routers and switches. Its modularity and highly customizable structure makes it ideal for embedded devices. Linux supports more than IP networking, but it's by far the most used. Linux is ideal for firewalls and complex network usage. Now, how to get started? For end user, Linux provides all the features we use: computer forums or computer 4, the email, web browsing, graphical design, movie making, editing, photo management, 3D design, music, and much more. The robust and secure OS. No need to be grand tech kit to get started. This did not used to be this case. How do I run my Microsoft Mac program on Linux? Short answer, you don't. Long answer, find a way. Find the same program made for Linux or something that provides the same features. Now, how does the Linux distribute or the distribution? The first step is to pick a distribution. Distribution are release collection of already compiled and figure Linux system. Without distribution, you'll have to be an IT master to configure a system to run Linux. There are many flavors of Linux distribution: Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian, the Arch, DSL, Santos, Red Hat, SUSE. In fact, hundreds of distributions exist. Or the user group. You're already here, so we can skip this. Networking, learning from peers help you getting over the hurdles. that you will run into. The Linux is all about community. Become part of it. Attend user group meetings. Use IRC, mailing lists, etc. to make Linux better without an active community. Open source does not work. A great place to work on getting better at public speaking. The IRC, or the Internet Relay Chat, has been around since the mid 1980s. Group chat online, being able to talk to 10 s or hundreds at the same time is not only fun but a great way to learn and exchange ideas. Text-based, old school. XChat, the IRS are popular program on Linux to use for IRC. Freenode.org is the IRC server for anything open source. You can try that website. The mailing list. Websites, mailing list, RIC, are ways of communication. Mailing lists are email-based communication where you send emails out to all subscribers. It allows a community of people to communicate easily together via mail. Or the UUNet is dead, no more. Where's the beer? This three website, if you want, you can sign up and check out this three website. There are some basic questions that we'll ask to you. Starts from, what do you want to do? Once you find your answer, there is a software out there to help you do that. You do not have to be super technical to make use of Linux. A little bit of knowledge helps tremendously. This is how we end our discussion sa ating mga kapwa OFW na nagtatrabaho sa mga bansa. Just keep on learning, reading, at kung nababagot kayo, magbasa tayo. Okay, salamat po sa pakikinig at bye-bye po sa inyong lahat. Magandang araw po.